Good morning, everybody. Enter the stars. And before we get into today's live show, I was going to do a separate show for this revelation that was basically revealed through a simple Google search. And I don't think anyone's really picked up on this regarding the Utah Monument. Now, as you know, the Utah Monument has been taken down. Under the dark of night, nobody knows where it is. But there was a connection to this monument that relates this right back to the Trump family. Now, this is important because we had already drawn connections between the Utah Monument and the Trump presidency and the timelines by which they released the Kraken. What are you talking about, Casey? Well, that is code for the CV and this whole plan from start to finish of what they plan to do to erase human rights across the world. And as you know, it is working. We're under threat of travel bans and staying at home. Basically, we are in martial law right now. Now, what is this connection between Trump outside of all the other connections we already made about when this object was placed just before the Trump presidency and how it relates back to the simian flu, which is a monkey flu. Now, this whole thing just went ballistics because we've got other shows later this week talking about the monkey strains that are in some of these VCs that are being developed in China and Russia. But interestingly, I couldn't find any connections between the VCs that are being developed here in the United States. If you guys have links to anything like that where they're using the kidney cells from a monkey in some of these VC developments here in the United States, please forward them to me at caseybrown1973@gmail.com. Now, let's get into this connection. Let me make sure we're connected first before we get into the connection, right? Good morning, everybody. Wow. Now, when I found this, I couldn't believe it. How could this artist be related to the Trump family? How can this be? But here it is right here. This is Forbes. This was 2017. So this was a couple years after the Utah Monument object was placed. And this is, that's not Josh Kushner. That's actually Elon Musk. But the article is about Josh Kushner, and who is Jared's brother. The title reads, Josh Kushner's Complex World, How Jared's Liberal Brother Runs a $1 billion Fund in the Trump Era. And this thing goes on, and look at this. As the world's attention on November 8th turned to New York City, where both candidates awaited results of the U.S. presidential election. So it's talking about the election. One of Manhattan's most connected people, Thrive Capital founder Joshua Kushner, boarded a flight to San Francisco. Now here's where the plot thickens, because they're talking about the John McCracken massive painting. This is the artist said to have erected or created, because he's dead now, created the Utah Monument. We're going to look at some pictures of that in a second here. Let's see. Do I have those pictures pulled up here? Let me see here. Let's look through these tabs here. We can pull up some pictures of his artwork in a second because I want you guys to see this. So, let's read this part here. The vast majority of his time is spent in his office. After his 5-hour Monday meeting, he plops down on the sleek leather couch in his corner office. There's a bullseye behind him, literally, in the form of a massive painting by John McCracken. It's a bullseye. We are the bullseye. Are you guys starting to see what's going on here? All these people know each other. It's all a big joke. And as he gazes across the room, his older brother's shadow looms from the black and white photo of his survivor grandparents. So there you have it. The Trump, Kushner, John McCracken artist from the Utah Monument connection. How could the two be connected if they weren't meant to be connected? This isn't some random connection. This is the brother of Jared Kushner. So there's something to all this. Again, I haven't seen anyone else cover this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just found this out a couple days ago. I was going to do a show later today, but decided to put it all together in this show. Now, check the sound real quick. Testing. Very good. Okay, looks like we got good sound here. Now, let's get into today's show. I wanted to open today's show with Matthew 6:22. Now, this is one of the most enigmatic and mysterious passages in the Bible. Jesus is speaking here about the lamp of the body. He says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon." Now we all know what mammon is. It is money. And it's interesting, this passage here, because it has so much. Just before the passage, they talk about laying up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust corrupts, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So, this light of the body, lamp of the body, some translations call it. The eye, not eyes, a single eye, is sandwiched in between two verses that talk about who your master is. Are you filled with the Holy Spirit, or are you filled with darkness? And here we have the richest president. I know his presidency is probably coming to an end. And his son-in-law and the whole wealth of the family, the gold, I mean, it's... And people are trying to say that he's filled with the Holy Spirit. It just does not make sense, because it says right here in this verse. Now we're going to get into what the eye is. Because after many years of deep biblical research and prayer, what was revealed to me is that the lamp, or the eye of the body, is your spiritual center. It's an antenna that connects us to either good or evil. And the most likely candidate for this spiritual center, this light, would be the pineal gland. And it's strategically placed at the center of the brain, free from protection of harm, unless you get a tumor on it, which we're going to get into in this film that I decoded. And it's a beacon of sorts. It doesn't have its own power. It's just a vessel. It's a vessel for either being filled with demon possession or with the light of the Holy Spirit. It's simple as that. So many people want to read so many other things into the pineal gland. But really, it's that simple, because Jesus tells us that that's what it is. And either you're filled with the Holy Spirit or you're filled with darkness. Now, who rules you? Jesus or Satan? Well, the biblical passages surrounding this passage are very, very clear. And you guys know what we're talking about. Why is it that there are Christian channels that keep talking about gold and silver? We're not supposed to care what happens in this life. Our life is beyond this life, and this passage is very clear. Because if you start storing these types of things up, they just get corrupted, and then you're just going to be sitting there watching your money, watching your gold, looking at the prices. Is it going up or is it going down? You become consumed with it. I've heard all kinds of people try to justify storing up gold and silver and saying, oh, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about rich people. Well, when you're storing up the gold and silver, what are you really trying to do? You're trying to be financially free and independent and rich, right? And when you got a president who is the leader of that, pretty much of all the presidents that ever ruled before him, He's setting an example, right? And what have we been chasing after? The stock market, the stock market. He's been saying, everyone's been saying, oh, he did great for the stock market. Well, that's the storing up of gold and silver. That is where your heart becomes. And we basically laid down all of our morals and all of our things that are supposed to be important, like not attending a church in person. And I'm not saying that, let me clarify that. Most of the churches are 501c3. I'm talking about gathering together. We let them tell us that we can't gather together. Why? Because the stock market's doing good. Because we got a paycheck in the mail, right? Because they're going to take care of it for us. So who became our master? Now, we talked about the preceding verse and the post verse after this very important verse. And this begins to indicate to us where our heart is. And now you can see why there is a dark side version and worship of the pineal gland, right? Because there's a good version and a bad version. Either you're filled with light or darkness. There's the choice. You either have Jesus in your pineal spirit, or you have darkness. So the dark side version would be self-worship, right? It would be riches, or the eye of Ra, or the kundalini, trying to access ascension without Jesus in the equation, or submission to God. In other words, you would want to become godlike. And you guys know the type that I'm talking about. They think that they can live forever and that they can hop bodies and reincarnate. And they're nowhere in that equation is Jesus. They're all talking about ascension into some kind of spirit that will make them timeless. Well, you guys, this entire timeline is going bye-bye. So if you're investing in the way this universe, the way things are, this set of rules, this reality, in any way, shape, or form, you are investing in the sinking sand, the kingdom that will go to ruin. You're supposed to be going through the only passage that will get you out of this dimension, the narrow gate, and that is Jesus Christ. Now, our belief and submission to God's plan is what opens the portal to eternity. With Him, and a closer supernatural experience with the Holy Spirit. This is what opens the portal, okay? Now, I try not to do a lot of, we're not supposed to be boastful or prideful, or we're supposed to have humility. I let the work on this channel speak for itself. And every single one of you, if you sit with your thoughts for a minute, understand that the Holy Spirit is on this channel, that time after time after time, God has been revealing things to us before they happen, and I still don't call myself a prophet. I don't call myself a prophet because God has instructed me not to do that, because that's boastful and prideful. But what I will say is the work speaks for itself. I'm walking in the Spirit, and for some reason, God has chosen this channel as a vessel through which to open people's eyes to the work of the enemy. Now that's very humbling for me that God chose us. Not just me, but all of you have been part of this process. All of you who love the Lord, all of you who basically care about the truth, the real truth, the truth about the Most High and His Son. So this has been an amazing journey, and all of you know that it's happening because you sit and watch it. Now, naysayers will say, oh, how is it Casey keeps putting up these videos time after time after time? He must be a shill. That's the dark side. That's them trying to discredit God. It's not me they're trying to discredit, because this channel is made up of all of you led by God. So they're actually trying to discredit all of you who come to this channel. So you guys know you're not shills, so you know what's going on. But this is how it works. You let God into your heart. You let Him and Jesus into your spirit. Every day that you wake up, you work for Him, not Mammon. And at that point, God will begin to work supernaturally through you, just like he worked supernaturally through his biblical patriarchs in the past. He begins to talk to you and reveal things. Now, I bring up this passage here for another reason as well, because much of the work on this channel centers around the eye and the lamp of the body. We made an amazing discovery about the positioning of the pineal at the center of the cross between the two thieves. Now, we made this discovery probably about 2013 is when God revealed this to us, that literally the crucifixion is written into your flesh. Pineal gland sits somewhere in here. Oh, here it is. There's a pineal gland there. And if you look, this is a visual representation of the crucifixion. This is where Jesus would be. Thief number 1 is your eyeball. Thief number 2 is your other eyeball. And in between is the cross, right? Jesus hung on the cross. Now, why would your eyeball be something that would be a thief? Well, your eyes is what steals your salvation. Eve's eyes were opened. Her salvation was stolen. And then there needed to be an intercessory, or there needed to be forgiveness. There needed to be a sacrifice. That would be Jesus, right? So you could see here, this is a very accurate visual representation of the crucifixion. The two thieves. One of the thieves makes it to heaven. Remember, Jesus was like, you will be with me in paradise. Probably the thief in the right brain, because that is the brain that believes in a higher power and a Messiah. It is your God-like brain. Not God-like, but the other word I should be using is, it is the part of your brain that believes in a Savior. The left brain is your science brain, and that's always trying to talk you out of believing in a Savior. And as you guys who have followed the channel and watched the Body Code series, you have understood that we need to be on the right brain. Now, your right brain's kind of more like your artsy brain, creation, creativity. And you understand that the scripture's about, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. Why your right eye? Because your right eye is controlled by your left brain. You see how it switches over? All of your nerves switch over. So your right eye is controlled by your left brain, and your left eye is controlled by your right brain. So it's all very simple when you take a step back and look at it. This is not confusion. Everything is in place exactly where it should be. And in this particular view, this is fascinating. Here's where you see the pineal gland set in the brain. And it appears to be in the heart of Jesus. Look at the images that scrolls around, and it looks like his stomach muscles there, his shoulders, his legs coming down as the spinal column, his arms there, and you see the figure of what appears to be a man hung on the cross with, in his heart, the pineal gland. We are the heart of Jesus. That's what we are. His heart, his love is what saved us, right? Look at that. That's just gives me chills when I look at this, every time I look at this and what God revealed to us. Now, of course, there are dark side versions of this truth. There are people that worship the Egyptians and say, oh, the Egyptians knew anatomy and they saw the eye of Ra and the Kundalini, all that Kundalini stuff comes out of the Egyptian lore. And there are people that say that the entire Bible is written based on our anatomy, but it's actually the other way around. God encoded the anatomy of our bodies into the Bible so that we could know who the true Most High God was, the creator of our bodies. He is the Alpha and the Omega. So the way that you look at this is all based on your heart. It is based on which side of your brain are you thinking with. If you're thinking in the science brain, you're going to try to write this off as the Bible was written by men and who dissected the human body, and some kind of ancient alien knew how all of the physiology of the body worked. And you're going to just say that this is all just a hoax. Whereas if you're thinking with your right brain, you will believe the Most High. You will believe the Messiah and understand what God was trying to do when he basically had people serving him. And in the way that you served him and followed his instructions, you became part of the body code. Do you see how this works? So these ancient biblical patriarchs, following the will of God, doing as they're told, became part of the actual physical makeup of the anatomy of the body. Now, the way to debunk those who say that, oh, this was all just anatomy written into a book by the ancient Egyptians, know that there are many precedents of the Egyptians not understanding how the physiology of the intricate details of some of these body parts even worked. So to assume that they had all this figured out thousands of years ago when the Bible was written is taking a leap of faith. Because I'll give you one example, the inner anatomy of the eye. For instance, there are intricate details about the inner anatomy of the eye that they did not understand. But those intricate details of the anatomy of the eye are written into the Bible as well. In the way that the eye works, the vitreous humor of the body, of the eye, the central fluid of the eye, being a metaphor for the amniotic fluid in the womb. They didn't know any of that. They didn't know how the eye worked. They didn't know the pathway of light coming into the eyes and how it crosses in the middle. They didn't know that, okay? So, and if they did know, they didn't write it down anywhere. All we have is a few basic drawings. We have the eye of Ra. We have the fact that the ancient Egyptians knew about the spine and how important that was. But they're very, very basic observations. Nothing in any detail that would indicate that they knew any of this. So this becomes a heart issue. And it's interesting, we're looking at the heart of Jesus inside the spinal, in the pineal position at the top of the spine, because this is a heart issue. Who do you believe? Are you a believer in the Messiah, the one and only Son of God? Or do you want to go the other route and take your chances for everlasting life? I know what I'm going to do. I believe in the Most High and His Son. Now, what else do we have here? Now, we're talking about this because the pineal gland is the subject of this film, this very bizarre film called Synchronic. It's all about the pineal gland and passing through portals. Another amazing discovery we made on this channel is that spirals are portals. And I know that people have talked about that, but it goes so much deeper. There's something about the spiral shape that means a whole lot more than you could ever imagine. Now, Jesus speaks about these portals, wide gates to hell or narrow gates to eternity. So this is the film. We also have spirals in the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. That was God's physical representation of himself around the Ark of the Covenant. When he was in the wilderness, those were spirals, pillars. Okay, these were gates. And these things, these pillars appeared. We have lots of precedent for that in the Bible. Now this released, Synchronic released on October 23rd, 2020. And this is crazy because this literally exactly covers all of the things that we've discovered on this channel years ago that were revealed by the Most High. So let me give you a backdrop before we get into these clips here. Let me make sure we're connected up, and then we'll get into the backdrop of this particular film. Looks like we're okay. So the story of Synchronic follows two medics, and they basically let's just play this here.
See here, Ventral pineal gland. Ventral pineal gland. Ventral pineal gland. Now, usually, when there's a tumor in this area, it's inside, but yours is at the top, here like the soda cap.
So, that's one of the medics, and he has a tumor on his pineal gland, and they say it's like a soda cap. Now, it's interesting because if they would have said it was a beer cap, this would have been a slam dunk. But we know what they were getting at. The soda cap looks like a crown. That's what it is. It's always been known as that. It was probably even made in that shape for that very reason. So here you have this crown cap crowning the pineal gland. We know what a crown is. Crown is the other word for crona, which is what we're going through right now. Right? And so he has this cap.
Here like a soda cap. Usually an adult pineal gland is calcified to some extent, basically hardening with age, but yours is like a teenager's.
So this medic here, basically, you can see the caduceus on his arm. They chose this on purpose. Why? Because this has the serpent wrapped around the pole. It's a copper serpent, the blue copper serpent. And this is in the book of Exodus. Jesus compared himself. He actually contrasted himself. He said, just like Moses raised up a copper serpent in the wilderness, so too will the Son of Man be raised up to save the world, is what it says basically. And many people get confused by Jesus comparing himself to the blue blood copper, but he was actually not comparing, he was contrasting himself. Okay. Now, that copper serpent back in the book of Exodus represents the blue bloods of Egypt. And the punishment was to look back at what they came from. Just like Lot's wife looked back at what she came from, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. So the caduceus is not a good thing, you guys. So our whole entire medical establishment uses this caduceus as their symbol. They're worshiping the Egypt. That's what this really means, you guys. So these medics, they discover a pattern of bizarre injuries on some of the calls that they go on, and these deaths surrounding this new designer drug called Synchronic, and that's the name of the film. It's the name of a designer drug that they find. And it takes them a while, but they discover that the drug is like the needle on the record. The groove of the record is the timeline, and the needle allows you to jump around on the record anywhere you want. Let me play this through a little bit.
It's a snake bite. It's a snake bite. It's a snake bite. It's a snake bite. It's a snake.
Now, in this next part, they go in and they find this woman who had a synchronic trip, and she gets a snake bite, because what this drug does is you can jump around in time. And we've been talking all about the snake bite, have we not? And I told you that the VC that is going to be unleashed on all of America in the coming weeks and months is the snake bite. And remember, we were saying this before. They were telling us that you needed 2 doses, remember? And now the 2 doses become the 2 fangs. There was also technology that they're thinking about deploying, where it's a patch with little fangs in it that goes onto your skin. So there are many, many metaphors for the VC that's coming out that compare it to a snake bite. I mean, you're literally getting poked with fangs, with the needle. Okay? And it's funny because they mention the needle on the record. It's piercing through time. So what is it that exactly is going to happen to us for the people that take this? I don't know, but let's keep watching.
No shit. We need to figure out what kind of poison this is.
Venom. It's not poison, it's venom.
Yes. Yes, you happen to know what kind of snake bit you? A snake on the second floor of a fucking hotel. Got a snake bite and an unknown possible OD. Snake was walking around with a fucking copperhead and he thinks God's
I ain't no fucking copperhead.
We've been talking all about copper, have we not? Talking about the copper component to all this, that somehow copper fits into this, right? We've been talking about how we see copper in time travel films over and over and over again, in telephone booths. Telephone wire is copper. Money is copper. It's 70 to 90% copper core in all money, except for pennies. So, watch.
Well, what is it, bro?
I mean, the punctures are not the right size. And her response to the venom can only be a Eastern diamondback rattler.
I have a tumor on my pineal gland.
Synchronic.
So, we've been talking all about diamonds, right? So there they mentioned the diamondback. What were we talking about diamonds for? Well, we looked at the Trump Tower, and from the air it looks like a diamond, and it forms a twin with the IBM Tower, which also looks like a diamond, which is what's on the chest of Superman, the serpent coming through the portal. The S on his chest. Okay, let's watch this here.
Messes with the pineal, so you experience time as it actually is. You drop the needle on the song you want to play, but they're all always there. These tracks are like time, rather than the linear, the one event after another way that we normally experience it. Synchronic. It's the needle.
Now sit with your thoughts for a second and understand what he's saying. This needle is, if you look at the needle of a record, it looks like a serpent crouching over a spiral of the record. We've talked all about this. We talked about how the outer ring of Saturn is not a ring, it's a spiral. Okay, this is from NASA. I mean, if you want to believe what they say, and even if it's not really a spiral, this is what they're telling us it is. So what matters is the symbolism, okay? Who knows what's really surrounding that object that you look up through an amateur telescope and see. You can see something's up there, even with an amateur telescope, but do we really know if it's a spiral? We don't know. But what they're telling us is that there is. So we got to go off their symbolism and decode and decrypt their symbolism. So imagine the needle of a record crouching over Saturn. This is the serpent. He drops in on the timeline anywhere he wants. What do you mean, Casey? Satan can't time travel. What happened when Jesus sent the demons into the 2,000 pigs? He couldn't destroy them yet, could he? Where are those demons now? They've possessing other animals and people. That's time travel. They're jumping in and out of host bodies. So, people really hit this channel hard, some people, saying, oh, Casey's teaching time travel. That's anti-biblical. No, it's not. That's what demonic spirits do. They're basically traveling through time. And God's version of that would be angels, because they're coming from the infinite into the finite, right? They're coming from the infinite timeline, and they're dropping in our timeline to intervene, to save us. Now, at the end of this, I'm going to tell you guys a little story about a trip that I took with my mother yesterday that was just amazing. What an amazing trip that was. But I'll share that with you. I'm spending a little bit of time with my mother. She's in her 70s now, so I'm just trying to be around a little bit more, you know. So anyway, look at this. So Saturn is basically a record of time. It's a spiral. Now, all the technologies are built this way. CDs, movie reels, records. They're basically little copies of the timeline. And the serpent jumps around in the timeline. This is his visual representation of what he does. It's a coiled line or a coiled snake, right? Now, watch this. Remember the movie cover poster? Here it is right here. There's your record. There's Saturn right there. The spiral ring. Here's the arrow that we've been talking about, going through the center of the gate, shooting through. Remember I told you the arrow is the serpent. That's what the arrow is representative of. It's like in the Alien franchise, the serpent coming out of the chest. Or in Donnie Darko, the water coming out of the chest, or the spear coming out of the chest, like he said. Or in Stargate, where the Goa'uld was in, the symbiote was in the chest of the Goa'uld, right? So there's precedent for this in film, and they know exactly what they're saying and doing. The serpent is the demonic spirit that possesses the host body, and this is how they jump around in time. Now, they can't go backwards, of course, but they can go forwards in the timeline to enact their whatever it is they're going to do. So what else we got going on here? Let's go back to this. So understand that Saturn is time. This is why they call it Chronos, because it's a visual representation of time. We're locked in this cube up here. There's a cube, or so they tell us, at the North Pole of Saturn. That's the time cube. And to get out of this, you have to break this apart into a cross. Jesus is the only way to break apart the timeline, to get out, to go through the narrow gate.
This is a time travel pill. It allows you to go back in time for about 7 minutes.
Now, I have the hand pointing at this because at 11:58, remember that number? Everyone's like, oh, not everyone. I keep saying everyone. I'm sorry, you guys. It's just, to me, every soul matters. You know, like God says, every soul matters. He wishes none to perish. I take it personally because this information is so compelling and so complete and so thorough that when I see even a few % of people mock the channel or come onto the channel, I take that personally, and I want to help them understand, because this isn't about me. This is about their salvation. This is about understanding how they're being deceived. And so we covered the number 58 at length, and still there were people that are like, that's just fake. You're just coming after Trump. Who cares if Trump has a 58-story Trump Tower, that Mar-a-Lago has 58 bedrooms, and that he appeared in a film, he appeared in the TV series Quantum Leap, and the year was 1958 on his mother's birthday in that episode in which Trump appears as a 12-year-old child. Who cares? None of that means anything. Who cares about the Western from 1958 in which there's a man named Trump who builds a wall? Who cares? That's just all coincidence. You're just piecing together things. No, we're not. No, we're not. And this is why you need to see this. Now here, once again, the 58 appears, and he talks about Synchronic allowing him to go back to certain points in history for 7 minutes. And so then he has to take, this is one of the medics, he has to take Synchronic to find his friend's daughter. The other medic, he has to find the daughter who got stuck in the past somewhere. Let's keep watching.
I was just back in time. In this exact geographical location. Before it was all pumped out and it was still swampland.
Still swampland. Still swampland. Still swampland. Still swampland. Still swampland.
Drain the swamp. You think it's an accident that they put that in here? There's something that Trump knows or did or whatever. I don't know. We won't know until probably years from now how all this played out. But there's something going on here.
Things that touch you while on the drug seem to be a little distorted.
So things that come back into his timeline get distorted. And of course, there is a coin and it's distorted. Coins are copper. So again, there's the copper mentioned. And he goes back to the civil whoa, we're going to call it. And we remember all the civil whoa discoveries we made related to time travel and Lincoln. All of that fits right into what we're talking about here.
My best friend, his daughter Brianna took it and she disappeared. So hopefully with these experiments, I'll learn a way to bring her back.
So he jumps down into the ditch, and there you see the snake with the fangs. See the two boxes or whatever at the end, bundles, whatever those are, become the fangs of the snake. And then they montage that into the Milky Way. And remember, we told you that the Milky Way was really the Molech way, and that milk is a metaphor for human sacrifice, and that the Milky Way looks like a snake eating its tail. It looks like the Ouroboros. Now, we didn't make that discovery about the Ouroboros, the Milky Way. People had made that connection long ago. Well, look at this shot. Watch this as the fangs become the Milky Way. There it is right there. So he was able to save the girl, but he gets stuck in the past on the Civil War battlefield. Now, here's the crazy thing. There's a race component to this, which is exactly what they were trying to push. I don't think it worked. I think people came together and we overcame something that they were really trying to push us into. They were trying to recreate the Civil War through the CV and BLM and all this stuff that we all just endured. It didn't work. Okay? They tried. We all know they tried. The right and the left were trying to stoke the flames. And see, we need to counter this negativity. That's why we did videos, and I went down to Arkansas in the South and I showed you guys that people are people. And I get emotional about this because people are people. And what they've done to us, the right and the left, because they're both to blame for this, is try to pit us against one another. And that's the most insidious kind of evil that you can imagine. It is insidious. And I'm not saying that these things didn't happen or people weren't treated a certain way. But believe it or not, race relations are better than they've ever been. And I'm an example of that. And so we need to fight against that feeling. And I'm speaking to my white brothers and sisters and my black brothers and sisters. Okay? We need to stop it. We need to just give someone the benefit of the doubt or reach out or hug them or whatever. Whatever you need to do to get rid of some of this division. Okay? Now, before I get into some of these other stories, I want to share a few things with you guys. I always like to look at the cast members and how they're cast. Now, we've had a precedent for this. We've always shown you guys the cast members, their birthdays, and what day of the year they were born. And almost every single time, the way that they cast these films reveals something. So I did that here. Let's let this play out. That's Jamie Dornan. He plays one of the medics. He was born on May 1st. That's the Illuminati Day. And also it's a day of sacrifice. It's also the founding of the Illuminati. It's also the founding of this country. For those of you that don't know, 888 plus 888 is 1776, the year America was founded. Anthony Mackie, born on 9/23, that's not an accident either. Now 3/29, March 29th, is the 88th day of the year. So here you have a perfect pair. And so you have, I want to do this thoroughly here. Hold on. Let's go back here. So Jamie was born in 82, that's 2 8s, and then his counterpart, this guy was born on 9/23. And if you convert that to 3/29, it's just in reverse. That just so happens to be my birthday. It's weird we're covering all this time stuff. This is just how it works, you guys. And the numbers do mean a lot. You're not supposed to live your life by the numbers, but you recognize what you're looking at, right? And so 3/29 backwards, that's March 29th, and that is the 88th day of the year. Bizarre, right? So as you guys know, I went back through Arkansas a couple weeks ago, and interestingly, I think I told you guys the story of the neighbor that came over and dropped in the first time I went in May, and told me that he had gone to the Walmart. He decided he wanted to move to the area because when he went to the Walmart, he didn't see any blacks or Mexicans. And on its face, a lot of people would just shriek in horror, right? And just run into a hole or run away as fast as they could, right? But in the same sentence, I said, well, I'm not going to use his real name, so I don't want to embarrass the guy. But I said, I'm black, right? I mean, I have very black features. There's images and pictures of me on my channel. Okay, I just don't get on the camera because I don't want this to be about what I look like, But if you look on this channel, you will see pictures of me and on my Facebook page as well. And I'm very ethnic looking, I at least look maybe from the islands. Some people say I look like I'm from the islands. But I don't look like a white guy. That's the point I'm trying to get at, right? And a lot of people could see that as a veiled threat, but I didn't take it that way. You got to reach out to people. Now, this guy was in his 70s, so he grew up in a different generation. And that was my first interaction with him. And I said, well, I'm black. I go, I'm black, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you seem cool or whatever, right? So this is what he said to me. So I'm like, wow, a little opening, a door, to maybe help change the world by proving that the images that you may have of a certain race don't have to be true, right? So he invited me to go hunting with him. He had some hunting land over there, and I said, very, very cool. I go, yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to go hunting with you and maybe get my first deer, or something. And he goes, yeah, I'll take you. Nicest guy in the world, right? But he had some latent misconceptions about black people, right? So next trip, fast forward to November, when I just left there, and he showed up again, pulls up, stops, gets out of his truck, shakes my hand, He goes, what do you got going on here? And we talked for like 20 minutes. Now, you tell me, what can you do to be better? What can you do to break down racial barriers? It's all based on what you can do. You have the power to change things. If someone has a misconception about you. Now, like I said, he was very polite, very nice. He shook my hand. So you have to look at the world that way instead of just keep putting up walls because someone says something that doesn't hit your ear right, is what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to share that experience with you, okay? Now, my mother and I took a drive up to Caples Lake, and it was really beautiful. Went fishing. I caught 3 trout. I actually caught 5. I threw 2 back. Beautiful brown trout, about 9 to 12 inches long. And, brought them back. And what an amazing trip that was, driving up the highway there. And just being up there in nature, you feel like you're really close to the top of the world up there in the Sierra Nevada mountains. There was snow up there, which was really cool. But on our way up there, we were right around Jackson. Out of nowhere, a coyote ran across the road and hit my mom's front left tire. And we ran over the coyote, knocked him right off to the side of the road. And it was just weird. Like, I never, ever have run into an animal in a very long time. But I was with my mom and that happened. It was kind of shocking. This thing was the size of a dog, and boom, we hit this coyote. A lot of wildlife up there. So I just wanted to share that story. And if you're feeling confined, go take a drive somewhere. Go up and just pull up pull up to somewhere where there's a beautiful view of something, and just pull your car up and just look out the window. Look out over the river. Look out over the spillway, I did that when I was in Connecticut. I would just pull up to the spillway at the Synchronic River and just watch the water go over the side, right? And this is what we all need to do to get our minds off of this and reconnect with God and understand that all of this is temporary. This is all going away very, very, very soon, okay? So, and if you're faced with a situation where you feel that something hits your ear wrong, don't just take the step of returning evil for evil. Look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity. Hug the person or shake their hand or say, you know what? I know you may have an image of certain things, but it's not always true. And I'll be your friend if that's what you want. I love each and every one of you. I'm going to let you go. We'll be back on here tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about this monkey strain inside some of these VCs that they're developing in Russia and China, and how that relates back into the simian flu of the Planet of the Apes, and how all that fits in to this monument that just went up and then was taken down. I think it was up for 9 or 10 days, which was the height that this thing was. It was 9 or 10 feet. So I think all of that was symbolic as well. But I love each and every one of you. Thanks for all of you that have come out to see the show this morning. We are live every single day during the week at the same exact time. So if you don't get a notification, just come to the channel and we'll be here at this time doing a live show, or I'll have a premiere uploaded. Take care. Have a great day, you guys. Much love.